Hey everyone, me Kevin here with an update for you on the current state of stimulus. For this one, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have your life insurance and you're signed up, which you can get in as little as 5 minutes via the link down below. Get your free stock while you're there as well. They bumped it up to $1,600 of a free stock if you deposit $100. So, Democrats just blocked the Senate's skinny bill from advancing in the Senate without debate. So here's how this works. In order to pass a bill without debate or to start voting on a bill without having a debate on it, the Senate needs 60 votes to advance the bill. But there are only 53 Republicans in the Senate. And so they would have needed some Democrats to come over and say, okay, let's skip the debate. Let's just get to voting on the bill. Well, as expected, literally minutes ago, Democrats blocked the advancement of this bill. This means the skinny bill risks being held up in Congress even longer as Democrats and Republicans now have to debate the skinny bill. Once the debate happens in Congress, Democrats can also filibuster the bill, which basically means taking up as much time as possible in debates and preventing Republicans from even considering having a bill at all. See, Senator Rob Portman, a Republican who introduced the Back to Work boost, spoke this morning on stimulus expectations, and he said, look, the point of the Senate trying to pass this skinny bill is just to restart negotiations. He said that 3 times during his interview with CNBC this morning. And he thinks that passing this Republican bill, even though it's a skinny bill, it's a crappy bill, it doesn't include all the things we want in it, he thinks it's a starting point and it's better than having no bill in negotiations. Passing this bill, in his opinion, would, quote, re-energize negotiations, which at this point have completely stalled. However, Democrats didn't even give this bill the light of day. Remember, Democrats want $2.2 trillion right now. Republicans introduced this bill at $300 billion. Which basically meant the package was essentially dead on arrival. Republicans say that this failure to get this bill through without debate is consistent with the unwillingness of Democrats to settle on a deal and help the American people. But Democrats say it's the fault of Republicans who couldn't even get their own party on board with the $1 trillion HEALS Act that was introduced 6 weeks ago. Basically, in order to get enough Republicans to pass a bill, Republicans had to shave down the $1 trillion HEALS Act and do this, well, silly $300 billion skinny bill. At the same time, Chuck Schumer says the Republicans' bill is just a charade to pretend that Republicans did something. And of course, Republicans counter and say, well, come on, why can't we just do something? Let's get education funding through, the $105 billion. Let's get the liability protections through, and let's get an unemployment boost of $300 per week through the end of the year passed now. But Democrats, of course, see those 3 items as leverage and refuse to pass a bill that doesn't contain some state and local funding, stimulus checks, and renters assistance on top of the joint priorities that both sides have, like unemployment, schools, and PPP funding. Now, even though the skinny bill was blocked, Republicans can still pass the skinny bill. However, they need to go through debate first. And remember, this is where you're going to hear this phrase filibuster a lot. Democrats can filibuster the bill, which is basically when somebody goes up, and we've seen this happen a lot in Congress over the last few years, and they start talking about literally whatever they want for hours and hours and hours. Because as long as somebody remains on the floor, they can keep talking. Those are the rules of Congress. So you could literally be up there talking about the weather and your favorite chocolate just to prevent a bill from getting passed, because everyone has the opportunity to speak. There are other rules as well. I'm oversimplifying here, but that is where the skinny bill remains now, which literally means for the next couple weeks, there could potentially be 0 progress in the Senate, which now we understand the quote a little bit better. Congress is the opposite of progress. This is also motivating Donald Trump to take a second round of executive action himself. I broke down all of his executive actions in detail yesterday as a quick summary. He's interested in passing a new round of executive orders that will fix the broken payroll tax holiday, which nobody's taking right now because it's just a deferral and you might have to pay it back. More unemployment money, more airline money, and potentially stimulus checks. Check out that video. I'll link it down below for yesterday where you get that complete breakdown, or you just look at my channel and you see the videos from yesterday. Very detailed on the skinny bill and very detailed on the executive orders that might come. In fact, White House reporters stated this morning, quote, Trump is widely seen by the people close to the administration as preparing to send the next round of stimulus checks himself. That was a quote from Washington reporters. There's people who work with the White House. Remember, there's a caravan of reporters that hang out at the White House and wherever the president goes. They hear these things. Anyway, on employment and unemployment, you're going to hear a lot about this headline that says we've had 885,000 unemployment claims. That's slightly higher than expected, but it's lower than the million that we've been seeing per week for new unemployment filings. Just a heads up though, this is not said a lot in the headlines, but we also had 800,000 self-employed workers file for unemployment, which adds to that 885,000 figure, which means we realistically just had 1.7 million new unemployment claims. This is up slightly from the 1.6 million claims we had last week. So when you combine those two numbers, the numbers are still pretty ugly. Fortunately though, on regular unemployment, we are now trending below 1 million claims per week. On unemployment pay, September 5th will be the last day for unemployment pay in Texas. Thank you to those of you who sent me the press release. You're always welcome to send me news, by the way. You could either post it in the Discord, in the chat, or post in the comments, or some of you even email me, though I cannot reply to all of the emails, and I'm super sorry about that. You could always email me if you have questions about bundling up for the courses that I have, using the coupon code, making sure that everything's good with your order. That I will reply to. Moving on, 18 states have now issued the FEMA unemployment payments, with Montana and, as we just heard, Texas depleting all of their payments with actually 6 weeks of payments going out. That is more than the 5 weeks that we expected, but we are now back to zero. On COVID, you're going to hear, if you haven't already, you probably have a ton of information about this newly released audio that Donald Trump downplayed COVID early on in the pandemic and plans to continue downplaying the pandemic to reduce panic. Media outlets have played clips of Donald Trump saying that COVID is worse than the flu in private, but then publicly saying it's not as bad as the flu, or maybe it's just as bad as the flu. It's sort of just like a flu. Those on the other side, that is supporters of Trump, say that this is a mischaracterization. They say that the World Health Organization, the CDC, and the Department of Health and Human Services downplayed the risks of COVID early on as well, and said it would likely remain contained in China, and it didn't. And these organizations discouraged the use of masks as late as early March. Supporters of Trump say because of all these health organizations downplaying COVID and downplaying masks early in the pandemic, supporters are saying it's not fair to cherry pick quotes from Trump before these CDC releases saying, okay, yep, we're changing our opinion. We're now going from no recommendation on masks to recommending masks. Supporters of Trump say it's not fair to pick those quotes of Trump and kind of take them and string them along through the pandemic, as information from the World Health Organization and the CDC wasn't up to date originally in the pandemic and evolved over time. Yesterday in a press conference, Donald Trump reiterated that any reason that he may have downplayed COVID was solely to reduce public panic. I will let viewers make their own opinion on which side you think here. I tried my best to say that as balanced as possible. On COVID, folks, do this. Type into Google, Spain COVID cases. Spain now has more cases than it did in March, and much of this is being blamed on loose restrictions during the summer, where cases were almost completely flat. Well, now Spain is up to 10,000 daily cases, way up from a low of 200 daily cases in June. At the same time, The Telegraph sent a letter out and said, quote, the Prime Minister announced yesterday that coronavirus restrictions would return next week with considerable force. Alistair Health writes that while schools will remain open, a second lockdown will be far more devastating than the first for the country's social fabric. This, in my opinion, is a warning shot for the United States, and it's a warning shot for all of us not to get too overconfident. Until we have a vaccine, and until we actually feel comfortable to take the vaccine, we're not in the clear. Even though cases are trending downwards. Cases in the United States did tick up slightly yesterday to 29,946 cases. Overall, United States cases are trending down nicely. California is down to early May levels. On a vaccine, the pause on AstraZeneca's vaccine trial remains in effect. And now new research from CNBC and poll results show that 54% of Americans say they will not get a COVID vaccine. Thank you so much for watching. Get your life insurance. We're in a pandemic after all. The link is below. Get your free up to $1,600 with